Welcome to the last video in domain number 1. This part is concerned about technology challenges and auditing approach in relation to each technology of it. The first technology that we are going to discuss is the e-commerce. E-commerce is part of the e-business. E-business is a big umbrella, while e-commerce is a process that part of e-business, and it includes the transforming of ownership of assets. For example, under e-business, we have many solutions inside the organization. One of these solutions could be the e-commerce website. And in e-commerce, it is like a web store that is managed by the company or shared between many vendors. This e-commerce, what differentiated from e-business is that on e-commerce platform, asset ownership transform from someone to other one. There are a lot of types of e-commerce, including business to business, business to consumer, consumer to consumer, consumer to business, business to government, and consumer to government. So there is a lot of form of e-business. I believe in ISACA exam, CISA exam, you will not be consulted or you will not be asked about a specific type of e-business. However, this is general information and general knowledge. You need to seek it in order to be ready for the exam and the upcoming challenges in your life. So e-commerce has a lot of risk. When we discuss the risk or when we try to evaluate risk related to a certain technology, we always think about the CIA, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So when we discuss the availability concept, the internet allow customer to do business 24 hours by 7. So high availability is important. Being unavailable will cause a reputational damage or will cause untrust in your platform. In terms of integrity, data. How to ensure that data stored on the website, the prices, the authorization cannot be altered or deleted. For example, one of the common web attacks is simply to change the price of a certain item on one of e-commerce websites. This was an issue and it was doable from like many years ago. But this problem would cause in ruining integrity, and in return it would cause loss in revenue. Also, the confidentiality aspects. What if I use a platform that accepts payment from credit card data? How to ensure that the credit card information stored on my or used on my e-commerce platform protected and information is protected? What about cookies? What about the software that installed on clients? If I am an e-commerce provider and I am developing a mobile application published on Android platform or Apple iOS platform, how to provide assurance for the customer that this application is trustworthy and it will not take excessive permission and will only do what it takes in order to gain access to my platform. So simply, when we think about technology risk, we discuss these 3 terms in mind. We put the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and start to think about what are the key risks related to each aspect of these aspects. We also have another issues in related to e-commerce, which is authentication. Authentication need to be performed. So we need, there is an authentication risk. Authentication risk could be caused by man-in-the-middle attacks. So we need, as an auditor, to understand what are the responsibilities and what are the controls in place to secure the authentication. Also, e-commerce have another risk, and this has another risk, and this risk is not related to technology, but it is related to the nature of transparent market. As we are selling our products on the internet, we are not only the only company who is now selling its products over internet. There is a lot of companies that could sell the similar product. So e-commerce allows a customer to shift between suppliers because he will find that he will gain transparent view about the prices and cost and so on. Organizations participating in e-business need to make their service offering attractive and resilient in order to ensure that their system will remain up and will be able to absorb attacks and whatever threats that could harden its capability to run and stay. So systems that participate in e-commerce and even companies that participate in e-commerce has a lot of challenges as we are on internet. So the threat landscape is very wide. So they need to ensure that by design their system is well engineered to absorb such threats. What is the role of IS auditor when reviewing e-commerce business? Auditor should review interconnection agreement between my company and other stakeholders like hosting services, internet service providers, clients, in order to understand what are the acceptable terms of usage and what is the SLA in place that provide a security or provide a reliability service from my service provider. What are the security mechanism and procedures are in place? What is the security architecture? And also, if there a change management process, what is the procedures of the change management? The auditor may request for a change management document and change management report to understand if recent system changes was a result for approved change management or not. By the way, change management is one of the requirements of BCI DSS, and as we are speaking here about e-commerce, so we are speaking about companies that is dealing with cardholder data. So in this case, BCI compliance is mandatory in this case, and one of the compliance or requirements of the BCI data standard payment system is that change management process existence. Also, auditor can review e-commerce application logs and methods for responding to security breaches such as incident response plan and detective control that in place and what are the configuration of it, and CIA requirements such as confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and if there is external or third parties in place. If I have contract for outsourcing a certain service, so I need also to ensure that I have contractual agreement in this contract that allow me the right for an audit to audit these suppliers or these third parties to ensure its adherence to the CIA requirement. So this all about what can auditor do in respective to auditing an e-commerce organization. Remember that right to audit need to be included in agreement between suppliers and contractors. In some cases, the contractor could respond or the service provider could respond with SOC 2 report. You need always, when considering risk, to evaluate the risk related to confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So the next technology we have in our scope is the EDI, or Electronic Data Interchange. Electronic Data Interchange is a well-known feature in nowadays as it replaces the traditional paper document exchange. When business to business start to exchange information, they do not send these documents in postal email or regular postal mail or using courier or using emails. We are now have a unified way for exchanging sensitive document, which is called the EDI, or Electronic Data Interchange. This system or this ecosystem consists of many elements, but of course, as this system is utilizing public network or the internet or a special network, measures need to be considered in order to ensure protection of the communication between different EDI parties. So EDI, as we said, replacing the normal processing. Instead of printing, sending in email invoice to the supplier and supplier respond back, many EDI solutions provide seamless interaction between suppliers using what is called electronic data interchange. You need to understand that in EDI architecture, we have three main components. The first component is the communication handler, and communication handler is responsible for transmitting and receiving electronic documents over either public network or dedicated private network. This dedicated private network could be called as value-added network or VAN, so you need to know this term. The second component is the EDI interface, and this interface consists of two main components. First component is application interface, and third component is EDI translator. About application interface, this is interface that move electronic transaction from application system and perform data mapping. And as for the translator, translator is a device that translates between different data formats. And last but not least, the application system. An application system is the program that processes the data sent to or received by the trading partner. In some cases, EDI can use public network to communicate between different suppliers, and this public network utilize the publicly available commercial infrastructure. So we may find a vendor that providing EDI as a service, and this utilize a public available network or public available commercial infrastructure. And of course, when using public commercial infrastructure, this will reflect in cost. But you need to ensure that this provider of EDI service is a trustworthy in order to ensure that data moving between two parties in the EDI interchange will remain confidential and will remain secret. We have another option for the EDI by using dedicated connection, and this is applicable for governmental cases and for some cases, but as it is dedicated, so this will of course impose a higher cost for the EDI service. So we have a lot of risk in relation to EDI. One of these risks is the authorization risk. This is the biggest challenge in EDI because the interaction between parties is electronic and no inherent authentication occur. That means we can send document to wrong party or send document without approving it from the company. And computerized data cannot distinguish between human element or signature. So this complements the first point. Unauthorized access to electronic transactions can happen also if we are using public network to transfer the EDI information and the provider is untrustworthy. So this will result in unauthorized access to electronic transactions or read these transactions. Duplication of EDI transmission or loss in EDI transmission is one of the risks, and loss of confidentiality during moving the data or moving the data to third party is one of the risks of EDI as well. What is the role of IS auditor in the EDI environment? The first one, IS auditor need to ensure that inbound EDI transactions are accurate and completely received, translated, passed to an application, and processed only once. We can move or we can use the EDI to request a certain product or certain product from the inventory. So imagine if I received an invoice from the customer and this invoice duplicated in processing twice. This could result in a problem in the inventory because the product may be shipped to the client twice. So imagine what would be a problem if we have a problem in processing of the inbound transactions. The auditor use in this case receipt of inbound transactions to ensure that the EDI transactions, inbound transactions has been completely received, translated, and passed to an application and processed only once. The other part that auditor will be concerned about is the outbound transactions. We need to ensure that only authorized outbound transactions are processed. These contain only pre-approved transactions with the third party or valid trading partners. So we can have a kind of pre-approved already. We need to ensure that the pre-approved list of transactions should be valid and intended only to send to valid trading partner. You may refer to the ISACA review manual. This part regarding the technology and audit responsibility will be efficient because they have a lot of information, specifically if you want to audit an EDI infrastructure. So depending about what is the type of infrastructure or technology you are auditing, you will find a lot of resources that can help you, especially in the ISACA review manual itself. Another technology in the scope of our video is the point of sale system, and point of sale system enables the capture of date and time and place of sales transaction. The most common payment instruments that can be used with the point of sale is the credit or debit card. You need to pay assurance that primary account number, personal identification numbers, if stored on the local point of sale system, should be stored encrypted. This is a PCI requirement, however. And certain types of data such as CVV, which are the four numbers behind the credit card, should never be stored on these devices. You will find it useful to look at the PCI standard if you are interested more to know how to secure the point of sale system and what are the security requirements related to the PCI standard. Another trending technology that is well established now is the e-banking, and e-banking is a mean or a way for a customer to deal with their bank. E-banking can be subject to many risks. One of these risks is a strategic, reputational, operation risk, and all of this kind of risk is very hard, but especially for reputation risk. Reputation risk is one of the key risks that are related to e-banking, because if e-banking went down, this would cause reputational damage for the bank. So the next technology is the EFT, or the electronic fund transfer. And electronic fund transfer means that we can electronically transfer a fund between buyer and seller. And EFT allow parties to move money from account to other account, and this replaces the traditional account, or replace the traditional way of moving accounts, or traditional way of moving money from account to account using check and cash. So we replace the check and cash process by the electronic fund transfer. EFT transaction usually function via internal bank transfer from one party account to other party account via what is called a clearing house. IS auditor need to ensure authentication methods are in place. And in case EFT is using a switch, and the switch could be provided by a third party, the IS auditor should ensure that he has guarantees that this switch is well protected and comply with the requirement or security requirement from the bank or the auditee perspective. This can be ensured by having the right audit clause in the contract, and auditor need first to review the contract to ensure the right to audit is included. Then he can communicate with the provider or communicate with the service provider to identify the scope of the audit and do the audit, or either the provider can reply with SOC 2 report, as we said earlier. Another technology that we need to consider is the automated teller machine. Again, it is all about financial institutions, or all of these technologies is applicable on financial institutions. ATM is a specialized form of point of sale terminal. It is not a point of sale, however, ATM is mentioned. This text is quoted directly from the ISACA review manual. So ATMs is a specialized point of sale terminal that record money transaction, fund transfer, and so on. It is designed to be unattended and used by customer of financial institution. What do we mean that by it is designed to be used unattended? Is that ATMs are placed in areas where nobody exists, and it provides a self-service to the customer. So it can be used after banking hour and so on. So securing ATMs from physical perspective is important, as well as securing communication lines that connect the ATM with the bank. Auditor need to review USB, for example, if there is a locks. This is part of physical requirement to securing an ATM. For instance, if anybody have a free access to USB port in the ATM, he can plug a malicious USB stick and deliver a malware to this ATM, unless you have a kind of control that block USB access, but you need from beginning to apply physical security. Remember when we was discussing the concept of a strong control and said that strong control need to consider administrative and technical and physical aspects. Identification measures need to be also audited. The PIN pad, the cameras, the log retention and audit trail, reviewing communication security, ensuring that connections between the ATM and the bank is utilizing a secure line using encrypted communication, inspecting ATM card slot, keypad, and enclosure to ensure that no skimming device can be installed on the ATM. And skimming, one of the interesting attacks that target ATM machines. And skimming simply is to putting additional or putting a fake entrance for the card. I believe this video is discussing what is the concept of skimming, and I hope that I don't violating a kind of copyrights here. However, as you can see here, the inspector is removing a duplicate part, and this part is somehow reading the information of credit card installed or being inserted in this ATM. We can also find another. I believe I cannot make the video move forward. However, the intruder also has an option to install here, insert like a fake keypad, and this fake keypad will be placed on top the original keypad, and whenever he enter the credit card PIN code, the intruder will have the magnetic strip data read from the skimming device implemented here, and the PIN code inserted will be recorded on the pad. He may also not placing a keypad, but he can insert a camera, and this camera and the skimming machine can be connected using network or using 3G or 4G to the intruder over the telephone network, and then the data is delivered in real time to the intruder or to the hacker. So this is a great risk when it comes to skimming, and I believe we get information about skimming machine. So avoid using ATMs in remote areas and areas where no physical security and no attendance happens. So review daily reconciliation of ATM transactions is also one of the auditor responsibility to ensure that the ATM's reconciliation happen. And the ATM reconciliations mean to ensure that the transactions really match what are cash or the amount of cash that withdrawed and deposited to the ATM. He need also to review the separation of duty or segregation of duties in opening the ATM and recount of deposit. Generally, when we discuss the concept of reviewing ATMs and so on, part of the daily operations of the ATM that two people need to perform the action. Two people need to be present with the ATM to do an action. So this is application for separation of duty to eliminate fraud and eliminate any chance for doing bad activity with the ATM. Also, auditor need to review the procedures made for the retained card, the card that are being taken by the ATM machine. As you can see, there is a lot of concepts, a lot of technologies, and auditor himself and auditor by himself may not be competent to do all of these tasks, or may not be specialized in certain technology to audit it in a right way. This gives the auditor an option to use the service of expert. And using the service of expert is a well-known task in this time. Audit team can need IT security specialists and other subject matter experts to conduct audits of highly specialized area. Outsourcing of IS assurance and security services is increasing and became a common practice. And we need before this to clearly communicate objective scope methodology using engagement letter. So before hiring expert to engage in audit activity, we need to consider the engagement letter or the appointment letter, which will define the objective, the scope, the methodology that need to be used in the engagement. The IS auditor should be familiar with ISACA Audit and Assurance Standard 1203, and in this standard, under performance and supervision and IS Assurance 2206, using the work of expert, detail what are the right steps for hiring expert to do a certain audit engagement exercise. Considerations for using service of experts: certain requirements need to be put or placed in mind before hiring an expert or issuing an engagement letter. For instance, If outsourcing is approved by audit or for audit security, if outsourcing is supported or not contradicting with any law or regulation. Certain regulation may deny that anybody from outside the auditing firm to undertake the audit mission. So in this case, hiring an expert or hiring a third party to do an audit is not a viable option unless he is from the auditing firm itself. Audit charter and other contractual elements. Does audit charter already approve this and have this in the scope or not? Because as we said, audit charter should include all responsibility or authority and so on, and define the audit function. What is the impact on the IS audit objective when hiring a third party or hiring or requesting a service of expert? What is the impact on audit risk and professional liability? Whether this expert will be independent and objective. For instance, I cannot hire an expert from information technology team to audit information technology team work in the same organization. This will, of course, affect the objectivity of the finding. And if this expert is really expert and competent and qualified to undertake the mission that I am requesting him to do it. Of course, the scope of work and methods and methodology that this expert will do his work with. One of the key points that I need to select the expert based on it is the method and what is the methodology that he will use. Additionally, compliance with applicable professional standard is very important aspect when hiring expert. We need to ensure that he will comply with the professional standard and what are the management controls that the audit management will place on this expert. Reference and background check to ensure the integrity of this expert. How could we manage the access to system, premises, and record? How to ensure confidentiality and adherence to protect customer-related data. If CAD tools will be used by this expert, will it be approved or not? What are standard and methodologies that will be used during the work? What are the documentations that will be delivered after conducting the audit mission? And of course, we need to sign non-disclosure agreement with this expert before conducting the audit engagement. So that was all for domain 1. That was all for this part, which was concerned about the trending technology, which are mainly related to financial institutions. What are their major risks? What are the challenges that auditor need to pay attention for it and take care about it? So that concludes domain number 1. I believe here we finalize domain number 1. This series of video is standalone series. So I now concluded domain number 1. According to the views and the engagement from audience, I may start in recording the second domain, but this of course will be dependent on how much engagement and how much feedback that I receive from colleagues and audience from all around the world. I decided to record this course in English. English is not my native language. However, I decided to record it in English in order to reach a broad audience and wider audience. So I hope the content up to now is informative, and I hope you are enjoying this series, and this information included in these videos really make a difference and really make you understand more and more. I may complement the series after finishing this video by some of Q&As, but I don't think if I am going to do that really, but let time decide if I'm going to do that. If I started to answer questions related to domain 1, I will conclude it in the upcoming videos. Thank you very much for viewing, and it was very pleasure meeting you in this series. Have a great day and good luck in your certification.